Hello friends, welcome to Dr. Ossai Physiology Academy, DOPA for short. This is a place where we'll make the learning of physiology easy, exciting and effective. Thank you for joining me. If you're new to this channel, you're especially welcome. And if you love the content that we share, kindly click the like button and also the subscribe button. And don't forget to turn on notifications so that you don't get to miss any new content that will drop. Now let's get started. So today, in the part 2 of the introduction to reproductive physiology, we're going to be dealing with sex differentiation, and then we're going to classify sex. Very interesting topic. No, we started with gametogenesis and sex determination, saying that the male determines sex because of the Y chromosome. In the sperm, you have the Y sperm, the X sperm. So the male determines sex, and it happens at fertilization. All right, so now the sex has been determined, either Y sperm or X sperm. Now what happens afterwards? Baby has been fertilized, the egg has been fertilized. You now have a zygote that starts developing day after day, week after week, and then that embryo would need to develop into a male child with male structures or a female child with female structures. How does that happen? How does the sex that has been determined influence this differentiation? And now, what is differentiation? So you don't get so confused, and let's not be philosophical about it. Differentiation simply means change in structure. Okay, and one of the underlying principles of physiology is that structure determines function. So for you to function as a male, you need to develop male structures. And another important principle is that proteins are the structural and functional molecules. So have this two in mind. Proteins and the structural and functional molecules, structure determines function. So we're going to be dealing with how all this come into play in sex differentiation. Now let's go into it. Now, before the 5th week of intrauterine life, this is what happens. There is a place known as the urogenital ridge or the gonadal ridge. Okay, around here, urogenital ridge, also known as gonadal ridge. Gonadal ridge. Okay, so it's from this primordial structure, primitive structure, that the male or female reproductive organs will begin to develop from. Both the gonads, the internal genitalia and the external genitalia, continuing from the internal genitalia. All right, so before the 6th week, there is no difference between the male and the female. Absolutely no difference whatsoever. The only difference is that the male has Y. You understand that? A Y chromosome fertilized the egg, and it has been determined, but it has not yet manifested. What we're dealing with now is the manifestation. So quickly, what happens is that from the 7th week, let me write it so that you will not forget, from around the 7th week, changes begin to happen. Now, the chromosome has DNA, which has genes. Okay, and genes, they code for the expression of certain proteins, protein synthesis. That's why gene expression is actually protein synthesis. Okay, so there is a portion of the Y chromosome that is called, that has a gene known as the SRY gene. Okay, let me write it here. SRY, S-R-Y, SRY gene. This SRY means sex determining region of Y chromosome. You understand? There is a sex determining region. So the gene in that part of the DNA is the part that manifests in the differentiation that we're going to talk about now. So the male has this SRY gene. So that SRY gene begins to express itself, okay, around this gonadal ridge, and it begins to make proteins, okay, begins to make proteins that will start secreting two hormones. All right, so the proteins that it's making will determine whether this gonad here will differentiate into a testis or will differentiate into ovaries. All right, is that clear? So as it begins to code for that protein, it begins to form a testis if there's SRY gene. Right? In the absence of the SRY gene, the ovaries will develop. But in the presence of the SRY gene, testes will begin to develop, and it begins to code for the expression of two embryonic male hormones. I call it embryonic because you don't have one of them in an adult. One of them is testosterone. Testosterone begins to secrete testosterone, and the next one is called Mullerian inhibiting substance. Mullerian inhibiting substance, MIS for short. It has another name. It's called anti-Mullerian hormone. They mean the same thing, so don't get confused. Okay? Anti-Mullerian hormone. AMH for short. So this undifferentiated form has the two. You see, you have Wolffian duct, Mullerian duct. So the Mullerian duct, in the absence of SRY gene, will differentiate into female reproductive system, while the Wolffian duct, in the presence of the SRY gene, will differentiate into a male. So what this is doing is that this Mullerian inhibiting substance secreted from the embryonic testis will inhibit the development of the Mullerian duct. You see that? It will inhibit the development, and then at the same time, the testosterone will promote the development of the Wolffian duct. Take note of what I'm saying. Very important. Now, it is not just the presence of SRY gene and it will promote this. Number one, testosterone is promoting the development of Wolffian duct. Then, secondly, AMH or MIS is inhibiting the development of the Mullerian duct. So sometimes where it gets very tricky is that you can have testosterone promoting Wolffian duct, but maybe the testis is not secreting MIS. What do you think will happen? So both Wolffian duct will be developed, and there's nothing to inhibit the development of Mullerian. So you have both Wolffian and Mullerian duct. That's a disorder. Okay, a developmental disorder. So you must know the fact that one testosterone is promoting Wolffian duct, another MIS is inhibiting. All right, so these two have to be absent for you to have only the female reproductive system. Is that clear? Very easy. So what if you have Mullerian present and you don't have testosterone present? It means there will be nothing. The testosterone to promote the development of Wolffian duct is not there. Then Mullerian duct is now present to inhibit this. So both will not be present. Do you understand? So understand it like that. You'll be able to know what will happen if any of them is absent. All right? So that is basically what you need to know about this development. And then when you are talking about it, you are talking about both three things: development of gonads, development of internal genital tract, then development of external genitalia. Okay, so the testosterone and mullerian inhibiting substance is necessary for the development of gonads and internal genital tract in the male. So when you're talking about the internal genital tract, you can just use this acronym SEED to remember it. Okay, seminal vesicles, ejaculatory duct, then you have the epididymis, and then ductus deferens, or vas, also known as vas deferens. The details are in the books. All right, look at it here: seminal vesicle, male duct, that's both ejaculatory, epididymis, and so on and so forth. So, but in the male, there's something very unique there, and we're going to be talking about it after the break. How the external genitalia of the male, the external genitalia is the penis and the scrotum. What exactly is different from the requirement for the internal genitalia and the gonads? All right, so we're going to be talking about that after this break. All right, you're welcome back. So now I want to talk about the external genitalia, this because it's very unique, especially for the male, and then we'll now classify sex. Okay, so now there is something different that can be confusing even when males begin to develop, in the sense that you can have a male who has a testis, has all this internal genitalia, but can end up having a female external genitalia. How does it happen? But he has testosterone and MIS. No. This testosterone and MIS is only for the development of gonads, that's testis, and the development of the internal genital tract, which is ejaculatory and all those, in the male. But there is another variant of testosterone that is required for the development of the male external genitalia, which is talking about the penis and the scrotum. And that variant is called dihydroxytestosterone, DHT for short. So testosterone is converted into DHT. So it is DHT that is necessary for the development of the penis, external genitalia, what you can see, and the scrotum. So while you may have the testis in the male, a male child has been formed, testis is there, everything, the ejaculatory duct, epididymis, and all of that, prostate, seminal vesicles are there. If DHT, something happens that DHT was not present at development, which happens around the 9th to 10th week, that person will have a female external genitalia. Okay, so the female external genitalia is the lower part of the vagina, which is known as vulva. Okay, and you have the labia majora and the labia minora and the clitoris. The clitoris is like analogous to the penis. Okay, they form from the same structure. So the penis is like the clitoris in the female, is part of the external, while the labia majora is analogous to the scrotum, do you understand, in the male. So if DHT is not present, labia majora, clitoris and all that is what will be formed even if the person has testes and all this, do you see the trouble there? So you must have this, and then it has to also have this variant, DHT, for external genitalia. But for the female, as usual, you don't need anything. So the female reproductive system, both external and all that, is like the default. You don't need anything to promote its development. But though the development to normal adult size, okay, you will need estrogen for the female external genitalia. You need estrogen for that development. Some estrogen to develop into normal size. But even if there's no estrogen, you will still have that female external genitalia. So when we're classifying sex, you will see where this other classification comes into play. That's the outward appearance. Despite the inner reality of male, the outward, there's a classification. So now let's go into the classification of sex. Okay, so let's classify sex into 4 major classes. Number 1, sex. Okay, or you can also, this one is also known as genital sex. Right, so what do we mean by all these names? Chromosomal sex, genetic, and so on. Don't be confused. Now, from the word chromosomal sex, it means either the presence or the absence of the Y chromosome. So if an embryo has a Y chromosome fertilized, a Y chromosome in the sperm fertilizes an egg, that means that person is male chromosomally. Do you understand this? You're going to see the difference now. Chromosomally, person is male because a Y sperm fertilized an egg. Okay, the Y sperm that has the Y chromosome. Okay, that's why there is talking about chromosome. Okay, so it's determined by presence of Y chromosome. All right, presence. Then the next thing you now ask yourself, what is genetic sex? Remember we talked about this SRY gene, which is sex determining region of Y chromosome. So you have a Y chromosome, but there is a region of that Y, okay, that expresses itself to produce those hormones that will now lead to the development. Do you understand? So you can have a Y chromosome, but the part of it, which is this SRY, that expresses itself to lead to the development of the male, is inactive or is absent. That part, small part, might be absent. So you can have a male chromosomal sex, but then genetically the person is not male because the SRY gene is absent. So the person will develop as a female. Even if the person has Y chromosome, all right, chromosomally the person has Y, but the person will go ahead and develop as a female. Do you understand that? So that is, this is actually based on the presence of SRY gene. So look at it, gene, genetic, use it to understand it. Chromosome and Y. So this one is presence of Y chromosome and its presence of SRY gene in the Y chromosome. Okay? So the next one now you're dealing with is gonadal sex. What is gonadal sex? It's a continuation of this genetic sex. It's the presence of male gonad. Male or female, depends on gonad. So it's the presence or absence, talking about the testes or ovaries. So if you have ovaries present, that means gonadally, the person is female. If you have testes present, gonadally, the person is male. Right? So this genetic one, presence of estrogen makes the person male, absence of estrogen makes the person genetically female. Okay, so differentiate all that. So this one can also be called gametic sex, which is a subset of gonadal sex. And you know what gamete is? The gamete is sperm or what? Ovum. So the person can have a gonad, a testis, but the person is not producing sperm. Okay, and all of that. So you can also have gametic, a subset sex of this gonadal, which is presence or absence of the male or female gamete, which is sperm or ovum. The sperm, presence of sperm or ovum. Then lastly, we now have the genital sex. So this one now has to do with the external genitalia. That's where that DHT we are talking about comes into play. So the person can develop everything. There's presence of estrogen. The person has developed all this Wolffian duct and all of that, ejaculatory duct, all of that. But the person does not have DHT. So externally, the person is having female genitals, even if the person genetically, chromosomally, gonadally is male. But externally, phenotypic has to do with appearance. So an appearance, if parents give birth to that child now, they will think the person is female until when the person now reaches puberty and the person will not menstruate because the person does not have ovaries, does not have uterus. Woo! All right, so this one for the male is based on the presence of DHT. If DHT is not present, the penis and the scrotum cannot develop. The person will have female external genitalia. Right? So for the female is the absence of DHT. If DHT is absent, the person, okay? But there's another variant that can also manifest like this. Okay, we've talked about absence of this giving rise to the female external. But also sometimes the embryo or the baby can have excess androgens. You know that the adrenal cortex has zona reticularis that produces some androgens, male hormones. Okay, so if there's a tumor there that is producing excess in the female, the thing can now convert testosterone, which is an androgen produced from zona reticularis of the adrenal gland, and have DHT, and the person will have male this thing, but the person is female. Everything is female. And because of that excess androgens, the person can now later develop the male external genitalia. So the person is female genetically, chromosomally, and all of that, but externally, people would think the person is male. So you can see how this thing can be tricky. So it's just good for you to understand what is requirement for the development of all these things, and that will help you in the classification. So when as a doctor you see somebody come, oh, this is my daughter, this is my daughter, this is my daughter, has refused to menstruate and all of that, sexual maturity, check, there might be a problem. The person has female this thing out there, but the person is male. Person is male. People think the person is female. Breast is not developing and all of that, no menstruation, but the person is actually male. Just that developmentally, the person did not have DHT at the beginning, and then the person could not develop penis and scrotum. But the person has testes and all of that. You understand it now? Classification of sex, sex differentiation, the structures. All right. So in the next lecture, we're going to be dealing with the structure of the male and female gametes. We're going to go deep into it, and we're going to look at the endocrine aspect of reproductive physiology. So see you in the next video.